Listen, first, I just want to thank you all for joining our awesome company in the Molano family. I designed this program specifically and exclusively for our team so that we can capture this market share in our respective demographic, and I'm happy to have you to be a part of that. Now, the first thing that we have to do is establish our why. Why are we doing this business? And have a why so strong that we just keep on going and never give up. I just dreamed of waking up and being able to take care of my newborns and not have to leave them to go punch a clock. I knew that there was no way things were going to get better for me as far as time was concerned because my responsibilities financially were increased. So I said, if I don't do this business to get free, what else am I going to do? I mean, going back to school for another 4 years with my schedule was not happening. Neither was that freedom. I'd just be educated and more debt and still working and not raising my babies. So this business was perfect. You know, it was part-time. It gave me ownership and there was no limitations on the income. There was no limitations to being promoted to the positions that will actually give you freedom. And, you know, where I'm from, there's always a reason for a company to hold you back. You know, but here there was none. You know, anything you can dream of, there is a way with our compensation plan to get it. I mean, if you can imagine it, you can calculate the income required to obtain it. I read in a book that said there are many things that will catch your eye. Only a few things will catch your heart. And with power, you can make a decision to own the things. But if you don't have the power, then you have to settle for making a choice not to own the things that really touch your heart. And sometimes the things that touch our hearts the most cost the most. Like my favorite car at 4 years old was a Lamborghini, and it's still my favorite car to this day. The design touched my heart before I knew what money was or what it meant to be what some people call materialistic. I just had a genuine love for the car. Now that I'm older, I know that the car costs $250,000, and until you find a company that can pay you that type of money, that car stays on your wall as a poster and not in your garage. But see, when you have desire and that's harnessed, that's power. But neglecting to follow your desires paves the way to mediocrity. See, when you've tasted possibilities, it's hard to settle for impossibilities. You know, some people may criticize you, you know, and believe that they are guiding you in wisdom, you know, when they say that you shouldn't do, you know, this type of business. But to have unconventional success, you can't be guided by conventional wisdom. Okay, don't let your road to success be sabotaged by the negator. You know, these are people who are negative about philosophies that are different from the norm. These are good people, educated even, ones you might look up to, yet they still are the ones that discourage you from growing beyond the norm. So just nod your head and agree, but watch how their lives unfold while you stay on the successful path. Okay, if you don't learn to think like an insider, conventional wisdom will lead you to accept the fate of the herd. George Shaw said, some men see things the way they are and say, why? But he said, I see things the way they were not and say, why not? I read about this story about Henry Ford when he told his engineers to build an engine that will hold an 8-cylinder in one block. And his head engineer said, that's impossible. Henry Ford said, make it anyway. So they tried for months, and his engineers would report back to Mr. Ford and say, it's impossible. He said, go and make it anyway. And one day they finally discovered the secret to how to build a V8 engine. I read that if you believe you can, the how-to will reveal itself. It will do so through the subconscious mind, which is a mechanism that is like a radio antenna, and it attracts what you think from something called the infinite intelligence that translates every thought that's combined with burning desire into its physical or monetary equivalent. So I encourage you to stick to the path, okay? And whatever you do, don't ever give up. That reminds me of the story about a gentleman by the name of R.U. Darby who found out about a gold mine. You know, him and his uncle saved up the money and bought the mining equipment and began to dig. And after a while, they just could not find the gold. It was like it was completely gone. So they eventually gave up, sold the mining equipment, and he sold it to a junk man. And that junk man sought the counsel of a mining engineer who advised him that the other men failed because they were not familiar with the pipeline. And his calculations said that they were actually 3 feet away from a fortune. R.U. Darby made it his life story never to give up again, and he went on to make millions of dollars in the insurance industry because of that lesson. I also learned that there is something called the principles of success. Anyone can be successful if they decide to. You know, you just have to use the success principles. Okay, principles are not facts, but universal laws that cannot be changed, kind of like gravity, relativity, polarity. Okay, they work for anyone, anywhere, at any time, in any situation. See, principles guarantee success to anyone who applies them because principles have no respect of person. Okay, some of us, unaware of it, have negative self-images and self-limiting beliefs about ourselves because of past failures. Our self-limiting beliefs are not based on fact or reality, so we must change the frequency of how we think. We must not let those self-limiting beliefs keep us from the wonderful privileges of having wealth and the abundance of such wealth, which we call riches. Some say money is not important and it's not good to be materialistic. And if you ask those people, are they broke? They almost will always say that they are. Meaning, if you don't have a desire to have money, you will not have money. Why would the universe give you something that you don't feel is important? See, God created you to be the very best that you can be. He created you in his image to have dominion over the earth. Abraham, Isaac, Esau, Jacob, David, King Solomon, Jehoshaphat, Job, and Hezekiah, just to name a few, all were extremely rich and in abundance of silver, gold, jewels, precious stones, houses, land, and cattle. There was also a man in the Bible named Joseph of Arimathea, who was a Jewish council member and the secret disciple of Jesus, who was rich. That's right, one of Jesus' disciples was rich. And because of his status, he was able to request the body of Jesus, and Herod commanded that the body be given to him. And Joseph, who had a tomb that was already made prepared for himself, he was actually able to place Jesus inside of his tomb to be buried. So we must change the way that we feel about riches and having money. So many situations in life has rendered us powerless. We have bottled up unresolved anger and we become, depressed, and you have to do something about that to change the situation, to attack it. We have to change how we feel about ourselves and our self-image based on past failures. I've talked to people who will bring up past experience where they have failed at things, before, and they just don't want to do those things again because they don't want to make the same mistake twice. Okay, so they're afraid to just try again. Okay, some of us have lost jobs, but we didn't stop working. Some of us have been in accidents, car accidents, and, have been gracious enough to survive, and we didn't stop driving. Maybe we didn't marry our high school sweetheart, but we didn't stop dating. Some of us are on relationship number I lost count and still dating and loving life. So we have to treat our dreams and goals the same way as our careers and relationships. With every failure comes with it the seed of an equivalent success. There is no success without failure. It is the natural process of success, and with perseverance and persistence, which there is no substitute, you are guaranteed to have success. Albert Einstein said, life is like a bicycle. To keep balance, you just got to keep moving. Self-doubt and fear have always been, the enemy of potential. You become stronger, and you eventually reach the point that you are virtually unafraid. There was a story of a man that was 31 years old. He decided to go into business, and in a year he went bankrupt. Then he decided to go into politics, and he lost his first election badly. Then he went into business again. Then he went bankrupt again. He had a nervous breakdown and was confined to a bed for months. When he got up out of that bed and finally got well, at 43, he went back into politics. Then he lost another local election. At 46, he lost an election for Congress. At 58, he lost the election for state senate. Then at 60 years old, he finally won an election that placed him in the White House. And he won an election of the United States president. And that man's name was Abraham Lincoln. Now, one of the things that we have to do is set short and long-term goals. Write them down and give them a deadline, which makes completing them 10 to 100 times more effective. And say them out loud twice a day to yourself, morning and evening, and ponder them all day in the mind as you go throughout your day. Okay? Through extremely detailed and vivid imagination, faith, and by our burning desire, the subconscious section of the mind can translate our thoughts into its physical and monetary equivalent. So focus only on the results. The activities will complete itself automatically by the subconscious mind, which really isn't a mind. It is a mechanism that can be programmed like a computer to bring about the desires that we give it, either negative or positive. So we always need to remember to think positive. You're already from thoughts all around the world from something called the infinite intelligence. There is a special power in going the extra mile. Okay? So do not strive for perfection, but instead do it as in to strive for excellence. There is a special power of faith. Faith is an action and not a state of mind. So when working towards your goals, look not for motivation. First, decide to take immediate action, and a motivation will come that will create and sustain the momentum needed to complete the task. Taking immediate action builds positive habits or willpower and persistence. Habit building is self-discipline in its highest and noblest form of application. Those positive habits are grounded in the mind through willpower, okay, and repetition of thought and deeds until they are taken over by something called the cosmic habit force and given fixation, after which they automatically operate. Okay, so with faith and a burning desire and definite purpose, and self-discipline comes as natural as eating food. Through self-discipline, we can break the spirit of procrastination that is within all men. We desire riches, but yet how often does opportunity appear before us, and the spirit of procrastination from within urges various delays in our acceptance? In listening to it, we become our own worst enemy. It must be conquered and mastered if we accept to share in the rich treasures of this world. We all have potential to be effective leaders. We lead about 4 people every day and don't even realize it. The purpose of leadership is not to maintain followers, but to produce more leaders. Great leaders are ordinary people who did extraordinary things because circumstances made demands on their potential. You must be daring. You must initiate new ventures and welcome new ideas without the fear of challenging convention or traditional beliefs. A leader is an innovator and not controlled by the opinions or approval of others, and should morally position themselves above reproach. A leader who knows who they are does not depend on others to validate his sense of self-worth. It is essential that true leaders be vigilant and guarding their hearts and minds and life from any compromise that will render them untrustworthy and unrespectable in the sight of all. If you are ready for criticism, then you are ready for leadership. If you are not willing to stand alone in your vision, not many will be willing to follow you. Be a visionary, even if you seem to be an oddball. A leader must have a good sense of humor and be able to reconcile viewpoints without giving offense and without compromising principle. Until you are willing to die for what you are living for, you cannot be an effective leader. Once you made a decision that what you believe in is worth dying for, everything starts to become easy from there, and the universe actually will start moving obstacles out of your way. I found out that the most successful people in this business read books as if they were worth $100 a page. So I stopped watching television. They say that you should stop watching TV for at least about 6 months when you get started in this industry, and start reading publications and magazines on business to keep you up with the news, the real news, how to make more money. Okay, a lot of the information that you hear in this presentation and in this program have been compiled from almost 50 books in this industry. So this system is truly made by the best because all of the millionaire earners who have influenced me in designing it. So all you have to do is just use this proven system. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We just put state-of-the-art tires on the wheel so we can win at maximum performance. So let's go make our dreams a reality now.